Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are going to preview the Niners Week 12 matchup against the Green Bay Packers in what is now a must-win game for the San Francisco 49ers. They dug themselves a hole, and we're hoping as fans they can dig themselves out of it. They're currently 5-5 on the year, the 10th seed in the NFC as a whole. They are 3 spots back of the NFC 7th seed in the wild card. They are 2 games behind the 7th seed in the wild card. They are 1.5 games behind the Arizona Cardinals for first place in the NFC West. And the Niners are coming off arguably one of the more embarrassing losses of the season. A walk-off victory. Geno Smith running to the end zone for a touchdown to clinch a win in Santa Clara, in San Francisco's home turf at Levi Stadium. You lose to the Seattle Seahawks. You lose that tiebreaker in embarrassing fashion. And now you set yourself up for playing a playoff game in the end of November, a week prior to Thanksgiving. You got to play must-win football from here and out of the rest of the season as of tonight, as of November 21st, 2024. The San Francisco 49ers currently have a 31% chance to make the playoffs. Did you think you'd hear that this year? I know I didn't. If they win this game, their odds jump to 46%. And if they lose this game, their odds plummet all the way to 17%. So technically, if they lose this game, the season isn't over. But as every week goes by, it feels like San Francisco's playoff hopes get further and further away. We got news today. Nick Bosa didn't practice. Trent Williams didn't practice. And the big whammy of all 3 of them is Brock Purdy threw a little bit to begin, then left practice, didn't talk to the media when the starting quarterback usually does. So we're in limbo as to, is Brock Purdy going to play this Sunday against the Green Bay Packers? We're going to preview that game. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show on the audio podcasting platforms. Give us a 5-star review. Cheap and easy. It's the biggest help to the show as a whole. And let's dive into San Francisco's Week 12 game against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are 7-3 this year, just beat the Bears on a blocked field goal to clinch that victory last Sunday. They are the 6th seed in the NFC playoff picture, and they've won 5 of their last 6 games. Now, if you're like me, you just finished watching the Browns upset the Pittsburgh Steelers in a snow game, a snow globe game, if you will, on Thursday Night Football. If you didn't see earlier today, while the forecast may not dictate snow, there was snow at Lambeau Field covering the whole field, covering all the seats, and it's supposed to snow, I believe, on Monday in Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wisconsin. So there is a chance, albeit weather forecasts may say otherwise, that we have a snow game at Lambeau Field. I believe that's the first time since 2021 the San Francisco 49ers would play in the snow, dating back to the NFC title game against the Packers that was ended by a Jordan Willis blocked punt led to a Talanoa Hufanga touchdown, and later a Robbie Gould field goal. That's how special and how unique we're talking about maybe this Sunday being. A lot of questions here already. Laurie Matthews says, no Purdy, no Trent, no Bosa and snow. What could go wrong? Honestly, I've been asking myself this year, what's actually gone right for the San Francisco 49ers? Maybe Renardo Green, Lenore's extension, Mustafa's played great. Jordan Mason has looked good, albeit not utilized up to his full potential in the last few weeks or so. But you're right, Laurie. What could go wrong this Sunday, as it feels like the season rides on this game at 1:25 on the Pacific West Coast? Kawachipto says here, Brock played with broken ribs before without throwing that week. I doubt he misses this game on Sunday. That was my exact thought. Now, yes, you're worried. Yes, you're concerned, because as we talk about Brock Purdy here, and if he'll play, if he won't play, yeah, Brock has played with more severe injuries before and won in Seattle on a short week, mind you, right? That was a Thursday night football game where they clinched the NFC West division when he had broken ribs. So it's not as if Brock hasn't played through more serious injuries before. But with the way they've been talking about it, the way they've handled it so far, it makes me lean one of two directions, which are kind of the either he's not as hurt as they're saying he is, and they just want to play the game of like, let's see if we can get the Packers off their game and give them a little trick here or there. Or Brock is more injured than they're letting on, and it's more serious because he threw for a little bit today, then walked into the locker room or the workout area, and you didn't see him the rest of the day, didn't talk to the media. So I believe Brock Purdy will play in this game. In this podcast, we are going to operate as if Brock Purdy is going to play because that's my belief. If he doesn't, well, the game's over. It doesn't matter, right? I don't have much belief in Brandon Allen or Joshua Dobbs, although if Brock Purdy doesn't play in this game, I am begging Kyle Shanahan to play Joshua Dobbs. I am begging him to. There's a reason why you brought him in. There's a reason why you guaranteed him money. It's because of situations just like this. Now, was Joshua Dobbs the best quarterback? No. But he kept the Vikings alive for a short stint last season when Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. And for a game or two, where if it snows in Lambeau this Sunday, it's going to be a heavy CMC and fingers crossed Jordan Mason game. The odds you run the football is not going to be very high. Or, excuse me, the odds you pass the football, not going to be very high. Why not get yourself a big dual threat quarterback in there like Joshua Dobbs that may not be great, but he can do some more things than, say, Brandon Allen can do for you. This is the exact situation you signed Joshua Dobbs for. So if Brock Purdy can't play, although I think he will, Joshua Dobbs better be the starting quarterback this Sunday. I don't care he's quarterback 3. Daniel Jones was quarterback 1 3 days ago. Now he's quarterback 4, giving goodbyes to the New York media. So anything could happen. Anything could happen. RC Sports says here in the YouTube chat, Green Bay resident, here, well, RC, welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in. Says, felt like 2 different seasons today. Absolute sloppy mess this morning. Wreaked havoc on morning commutes. Could be in for a very, very slushy field on Sunday. Woo-hoo! I'm telling you, I know the forecast may say sunny and cloudy, no snow. RC Sports here, who's in Green Bay, saying, hey, watch out. We might get a messy field on Sunday, which, who does that favor? In my opinion, this year, it favors the Green Bay Packers and Josh Jacobs' running game. Packers are a better team so far this year than the Niners, but I think a sloshy field definitely favors Green Bay over San Francisco, despite having Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. And honestly, I'd kind of be a little scared to play Christian McCaffrey if it is messy and sloppy. He can slip. You never want to – he's going to play, but it just things that are negative creep in the back of your mind when you hear that. Lori Matthews asks here, you think Kyle Shanahan would bypass Brandon Allen? Do I think he will? No. Should he? Probably. That's what I would do. I just think Brandon Allen is a fine come in the game. Like, had Brock gotten hurt last week and couldn't play the rest of the game, here comes Brandon Allen. But now you have a little bit of time. And I was saying this back in the preseason that Brandon Allen's the guy you have come in middle of games if Brock goes out. But Joshua Dobbs is the guy you have play if you have a week and a half or 2 weeks to prep for a game. So I'm hoping that this is a Joshua Dobbs if Brock Purdy can't go game. But who knows? We'll find out tomorrow, hopefully, when the starting quarterback talks to the reporters at Levi Stadium. Lori Matthews also adds here, bad weather can put a bit of an equalizer to the game. You're right, Lori. You saw tonight. The Browns upset the Pittsburgh Steelers in Cleveland. That field was a mess. That game was close the entire time. It was field goals, and it was kind of a couple of big drives here or there. It was a fun game, but Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns upset the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC North Divisional game, which maybe that favors San Francisco. I have no idea. Maybe it takes a nasty, gutsy, dirty, wet, sloppy, snowy game in late November to wake San Francisco up and turn their season around. But let's talk about the Packers offense and how the San Francisco 49ers can stop them. But first, I do want to talk about what this game means, because this is a game where San Francisco's season is essentially on the line. You have to win. This is a game you have to win. This is a game where You're hearing Jerry Rice call out the team, Steve Young's calling out the team, saying, how bad do you want this? How even Richard Sherman is asking on his podcast, like, how strong are you guys? Do you have that grit? Do you have the determination to fight through the injuries and the ups and downs of a season? Are you going to fold? How tough are you in 2024? And honestly, to quote Steve Wilkes, are you built for this? That's my question to San Francisco. That's my it's time to put up and shut up question to San Francisco this week. Are you built for moments like this? You were last year, for the most part. You were in 2022, and you were in 2021. Is 2024 the outlier amongst the Kyle Shanahan-led teams in San Francisco? So, your back's against the wall. Are you going to keep swinging? And actually, you've been swinging for weeks. Are you finally going to hit the KO knockout on somebody for the first time this season? But in more specifics, talking about the Packers offense, to give you some stats here, the Packers offense, I think, has been one of the better units in the entire league this season. They've been up and down for sure. They've had some issues here or there. The red zone offense has not been great, but overall, they are fourth in total yards per game at 388.4. They are ninth in passing yards per game at 238. They're fourth in rushing yards per game at 149.9, so 150 rushing yards per game as an offense, and they're eighth in total points per game at 25. When you read that, I said, uh-oh, watch out. Now it's weird because you hear those, okay, they're high powered. They are, they're gutting out these long drives. They're also explosive, where they have weirdly the sixth fewest completions per game, but the fifth most passing touchdowns per game. They have the sixth lowest play call percentage per game in regards to passing, but the ninth most passing yards per game. So it's really confusing as to how the Packers offense operates this year. It's been more explosive plays than these long, consistent individual drives. It's been a few flashes of greatness here or there compared to a 8.5 minute, 7.5 minute, 85, 75-yard drive where you're like, wow, that was a crazy offensive drive. It's more of they're scoring points because their defense is getting the ball back for sure, but also the offense is kind of, they're reliant on these big plays to help them get into the end zone, which is funny because when they get into the red zone, they are having the exact same problem San Francisco is having this year. The Packers offense, for as good as it's been, for as crazy as the stats might say they are, they rank 27th in red zone percentage this year, tied at 27 with San Francisco. Both have a 49% touchdown rate. When I see that, I go, okay, you have two offenses struggling to get into the end zone. And if it's a snow game, this could be a Jake Moody kind of, hey, Jake, go out there and get 3 or 4 field goals for us and win this football game, right? This could be a, we don't really trust Jake Moody, but in this case, we got to have him to win kind of game for San Francisco. So despite the Packers offense having these amazing stats, top 10 stats, they really have been similar to San Francisco this year in what they've struggled with. They've hit the explosive plays, unlike San Francisco, but without those explosive plays, the offense has really, really struggled this season. And really, it's not been great. Romello Bell says, I don't trust Richard Sherman. He had a Seahawks hat on during his podcast. He's played for both teams, so I don't know. He's definitely favored San Francisco more in recent years than Seattle, so I don't know what to make of that. But thank you for the comment here saying great show. RC Sports also says here, the Packers have struggled to do anything in poor conditions against the Lions. With Malik Willis, fans have wanted to see him come in to add to the run threat in the rain, but LaFleur won't put him in. Funny you mentioned Malik Willis, because I was thinking the same thing. That in a game like this, when you have Jordan Love, right? Jordan Love, who I think he may have been overhyped coming into the year. He's been hurt a couple times throughout the season, but he's made some pretty boneheaded plays during the year. A couple of bad picks. That one against the Rams was like, what are you doing, man? When he's in the end zone, you're like, okay. He's thrown 11 interceptions this year. So 11 interceptions so far. That's an average one per game. It's not been great. He has not gone a single game without throwing a pick this year. So he's going to give San Francisco the ball back. He'll give them a chance to capitalize on the mistakes he's made. And funny enough, the Packers defense has been phenomenal all year, right? Been one of the top units, getting takeaways, getting turnovers on yards allowed, one of the top units. But funny enough, they are the worst or one of the worst defenses this year that are allowing scores after interceptions. So we all talked all year long about San Francisco not getting it done post turnover. Happened against Seattle, right? You got an interception, you got a field goal for it. This is a game where I do think San Francisco's offense could finally get in the end zone, maybe if their red zone offense can pick things up, against the Packers defense that ranks near the worst part of the league in regards to touchdowns allowed after interceptions this year. The one thing about Jordan Love, though, he's a tough cookie to sack. They allow the second lowest sack percentage in football at 4.2%. He's relatively mobile. He'll make plays with his legs. Throws on his back leg a lot, but that always bothers me, but maybe it's just myself. But Jordan Love, to me, does possess things not like Matthew Stafford, but close to Matthew Stafford. So I think the arm talent's there. The mobility is certainly there. I just think it's decision-making with Jordan Love where you're like, what are you doing? But I do think that, say conditions are relatively dry. Maybe it's cold. Maybe it's long sleeve weather. You can see their breath out there on the field. Jordan Love, to me, is a player that can really have success against anybody. I just think for him specifically, you're going to have that one play a game, kind of like Geno Smith, where you're like, what? Why? Like, I'm scratching my head thinking, what did you see there? But I do think Jordan Love overall is a good quarterback. I know a lot of Niner fans clown him for what happened last year in the playoffs. I don't care about that. I think Jordan Love is on the precipice of being a top 10 quarterback in football if you can just get rid of those dumb plays here or there. But you can't sack him. I'll give you the ball back for sure. The thing about the Packers going back to their explosive plays, is that they're reliant on them to succeed. And because of that, they had the 28th ranked third down conversion rate. They ranked 28th in third down conversions per game, and they ranked 22nd in third down conversion rate this year. They're a team that doesn't really sustain drives. They're reliant on big home run plays, explosive plays of 10 and 20 plus yards. They have a quarterback you can't sack, but he'll give you the ball back. There is, at least in regards to facing the Packers offense, there is a route where San Francisco can feasibly beat the Packers because the Packers are going to beat themselves, right? Not great on third downs, quarterbacks turnover prone, they don't sustain drives. There is a way where just simply based on that alone, San Francisco can win. But getting back to RC's point after a long-winded comment, in regards to Malik Willis, I don't know if you know this, but the San Francisco 49ers this year, and it definitely showed against the Seattle Seahawks in the last drive, are the worst team in football. 32nd in football at stopping quarterback scrambles. When you hear that, you just think of, well, if there is a game for Matt LaFleur, who has been beefing with Kyle Shanahan for years, right? Getting back to 2021, where Shanahan called LaFleur about Aaron Rodgers, and it was really testy. Even before that, really, where Shanahan boat raced Green Bay in the playoffs and just crushed them and destroyed them. And with Aaron Rodgers still there. And then a couple of years ago, or I guess last year actually in the playoffs, Packers had San Francisco dead to right. It was like, oh, season's over with. This is terrible. Love throws the pick late in the game. San Francisco obviously ices it and wins it. There is some relatively bad blood, if you will. It's more friendly than that, but there is this like, I'm not going to take it lightly on you because we're friends. In fact, I want to absolutely destroy you because we're friends. They want to have this Why beat you last year? I beat you this year over the other coach's head between Shanahan and LaFleur. This is a game where I could see the Packers using Malik Willis in the red zone, if you will, against San Francisco's defense, right? It's a defense that, has played well enough to win almost all of their games as of recent. The offense has been a bigger problem for me personally, but the defense late in games has undoubtedly been a problem, mainly in the fourth quarter. I could easily see LaFleur trotting out Malik Willis on some plays saying, you know what? If you're the worst team in football at stopping quarterback scrambles, here's a quarterback scramble, Malik Willis, which Willis, funny enough, was awesome when he played for Green Bay in Love's absence. So I will be keeping an eye on that if there is a rotation with Willis and Love at certain points in the game. But more importantly, the Niners are going to have their hands full with Josh Jacobs. This is a massive game for Green Bay. And to RC's question here in the YouTube chat, RC, it is a shoulder soreness for Brock Purdy, as Laurie Matthews says here. Not exactly what that means in particular. I don't know if it's an AC joint or something else going on, but he's sore. I digress. This game, though, is going to be a massive test for San Francisco's run defense. And they are facing, arguably, besides Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, the best running back in football, like top 3 running backs so far this year. Josh Jacobs was their big signing in the offseason. Let Aaron Jones go. He's in Minnesota now, who we saw week 2 this year, who, funny enough, beat us. And now Josh Jacobs is crushing it in Green Bay. He has opened up their offense so much for them out there in Wisconsin. He ranks 3rd in total yards this year, 838. And the Packers have kind of gone from this Aaron Rodgers drop back, 35 times a game. Even Jordan Love last year, very similar to that. They're running the football 30 times a game. 30 times. That's more than San Francisco is doing this year, which doesn't really, at least it hasn't been who they've been in the past. And they've been very successful doing it this year in Green Bay. They are the 3rd ranked rushing offense per DVOA in the entire league, meaning this is a nightmare for San Francisco's run defense that has struggled a ton late in games. You look at their EPA, their expected points against, right? First quarter, San Francisco run defense is top 3. They're fresh, ready to go. They are a stud of a group in that first quarter. Second quarter, they rank 22nd in run defense. Third quarter, 25th in run defense. Fourth quarter, 23rd in run defense. And you're like, oh my God, you're facing the 3rd best rushing offense in football. We have the 25th ranked run defense in third quarters and 23rd in the fourth quarter. Oh my God. If this is a snow game, it favors Green Bay, in my opinion. And even if it's not a snow game, you are asking San Francisco's run defense to play over their skis for longer than they have all year long. You don't go from a top 5 unit to a bottom 10 unit in the next 3 quarters. That is an insane drop-off for a unit like San Francisco that, again, has played bend, don't break in recent weeks, but they're just not doing enough, whether it's offense or defense. And right now, Josh Jacobs, who is averaging 4.8 yards a carry on roughly 30 attempts a game for the Packers as a whole between Jacobs and Wilson, like they're going to trudge along and just wear you down. And I'm sorry, I love the San Francisco 49ers, but if there's a team you're worried about, like what's the one thing you're scared of? It's a team like Green Bay that can run the football, that can just wear your defensive line down, that can make you say, hey, maybe we should have traded for a run-stuffing defensive tackle. Maybe we should have signed or traded a foreign edge rusher. And really, it's going to be a big test for, yes, if Nick Bosa actually plays. Who knows? I'll get to him in a second. But Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott and Khalil Davis and Yetur Gross-Matos and Leonard Floyd and even Devondre Campbell. He talked a lot of mess after leaving Green Bay in the offseason. Hasn't really backed it up in San Francisco, but this is a game for him to prove Green Bay wrong and stop their top 3 rushing offense in football. He's a supposed run-stopping linebacker hasn't really worked out this year for them and Campbell, but this is a game that Campbell may be playing up for. This is a game where you wish you play that way every single week, but this game means something to both these teams. And there's like minor storylines throughout, whether it's Jordan Love or Devondre Campbell, and they have all these little tiny storylines. You're like, oh, okay. Oh, okay, they're there. So this is a massive game for San Francisco's run defense. And I'm worried about San Francisco as a whole and their defense being able to get off the field. For as bad as the Packers offense has been in regards to long, extensive drives, if there's a defense they can run against and have these long, sustainable drives, unfortunately, it is San Francisco. So we shall see what happens on Sunday. I will add this. I am mortified for Nick Bosa. Now, not so much in the pass rushing game. I think Bosa can do well against the Packers offensive line, although they're playing better this year than they had in previous seasons. My belief is Nick Bosa, if he plays, is going to be, getting some pressures on Jordan Love. But my concern is Nick Bosa against the run. Now, if Bosa plays, I am kind of hoping they limit him a lot. Maybe he's only on the field on passing downs just to kind of give them something else to keep him fresh. I could see that happening. In fact, I'd probably do that. But it's the running game that I'm really scared about him for. The Packers, what they do is they do this split flow running game, right? They pull Tucker Kraft, the tight end. They'll pull the guards here or there. And if Nick Bosa plays and you're Green Bay, although maybe you're not wanting to actively try to hurt Nick Bosa, what you do is you just say, hey, that guy's banged up. He's an all-pro former defensive player of the year. What do? You just have your tight ends lay into his hip nonstop. Now, it may not hurt him, but it's certainly going to slow him down. It's going to give you the edge. Okay, in the fourth quarter, Bosa can't play. And it's both of his hips, both of the obliques he has are injured. So I'm kind of thinking San Francisco might be smart to limit him to just third down passing plays only. Because if they play him the whole game on first, second, and third down, undoubtedly, the Packers are going to play this split flow running game. They're going to pull Kraft over and then bang, Bosa to the hip over and over and over again. And if San Francisco's run defense is going to be how it's played all year, they're going to be on the field for a long time, and you're just begging for Bosa to get hurt even further. Which, even if you win this game, and Bosa misses a game against the Bills, and then against, I don't know who's next on the schedule, but you're just asking for a longer injury for a player that if you want to go to the playoffs, you're going to need. So it's a small tidbit, but it's certainly an issue that could come up big time for the San Francisco 49ers. Keys says here, what's up, Sterling? If Purdy can't go or is ineffective because of shoulder, who would you go with? Joshua Dobbs. I believe that Joshua Dobbs can give you a little more mobility. I mean, a bigger quarterback. You saw in the preseason against the Titans and against the Saints that there is ways they can score without him actually throwing the football. So, and if it snows and it's rainy and messy, why would you want a smaller build, less arm strength quarterback in Brandon Allen? Wouldn't you want Joshua Dobbs, who played in Pittsburgh for a long time, who knows what it's like to play in the AFC North when it snows and it rains? Like, that guy is more built for the atmosphere of a potential snow day than Brandon Allen, right? So I play Joshua Dobbs. Rob, I believe it's Rob Eamon says, bring on the high draft pick. Well, Rob, we're rooting for wins here. We want to go to the playoffs, but I get many of you out there saying your eyes are towards the draft. Is lose while you can, refresh, but it is Eamon. Well, thank you, Rob, for clarifying. But I get it. You want the high draft pick, lose, tank out, get a high draft pick, top 5, top 10, get your star tackle or edge rusher opposite Bosa. Trust me, those thoughts have been in my head as well, but we trudge along here this year in 2024. It's not over yet, Rob. Not over just yet. Moving on to Green Bay's wide receivers. They have arguably one of the more impressive units of receivers in football. They don't have that bona fide like number 1 or even number 2 player, but it's like 4 or 5 guys, death by 1,000 cuts. It's Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks, and it's Jaden Reed and Christian Watson and Tucker Kraft's involved in there somewhere as their tight end. All these guys are good. All these guys give you something. They can give you some big plays here or there. They're clutch. They have relatively good hands. I know Christian Watson's kind of playing better. He's the first round pick or early second round pick than a couple years back. He's supposed to be the number one, but it's really been Jaden Reed, who I love. Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed is incredible. What he can do is just like, I am envious of Green Bay for having Jaden Reed. Honestly, I would take Reed over Deebo Samuels. So I'm jealous of what Green Bay's built in regards to their offense. And they're really impressive. They can beat you in so many different ways. And the one thing they do that is a staple of Kyle Shanahan's offense is motion. They love to get their guys free releases. They love to put their guys in motion. They love to divvy up looks. They are a team that wants to move around, keep you on your toes. And if you look at what San Francisco's done this year against the motion offense, it's another reason to get worried. San Francisco's defense ranks 9th in EPA per play when there's no motion. When there is motion, their defense falls to 17th in football per NFL Next Gen stats. So not ideal. You go from top 10 to barely top 20 when there's motion involved. And the Green Bay Packers offense this year, second most yards when using motion. So if you are Matt LaFleur, you are licking your chops facing the San Francisco defense, who I don't even care gets Mooney Ward back, which thankfully he's back. RIP to his daughter Amani, and hope they have be able to find some peace. But I don't care he's back, because it's not going to matter that much in regards to what Green Bay can do. Green played well in his absence. Gadam played pretty good in his absence. And Lenore obviously locking dudes down. But I know there's rivalries here. Keyshawn Nixon and Lenore and whatnot, like those guys are friends. They talk crap and whatnot. But I'm sorry, like the Packers to me offensively have the edge in this game over San Francisco's defense a ton. I think they can beat you in so many different ways. They are deeper than they were last year. San Francisco is a worse team than they were last year. So honestly, like, I don't think it matters whether. I am genuinely concerned as to how San Francisco's defense faces the Packers offense. They'll make mistakes. Like I already said, Love will give you a pick a game, but that goes back to the offense being able to make the correct plays and get in the end zone. In regards to Tucker Kraft, who's having he's having a good year, and he's like the third ranked tight end in fantasy this year, but like his stats don't jump out. You're not like, whoa, Tucker Kraft. You're like, oh, Tucker Kraft. But this is a game where I think that, man, if you're San Francisco's defense, the one thing you really need to get back to and hope kind of falls back into place is Fred Warner actually being, who he was early on in the season. We all love Fred. Fred's an awesome player. Probably the best linebacker in Niner history. If not, it's Patrick Willis. Fred's up there for sure, at least. He's not played great the last few weeks. Dallas, Tampa Bay, and then against Seattle. He's been a little off. I'm not sure if it's just the season's wearing on him. Missed a couple reads here or there, but there's been some plays where you're like, oh, like that's not the Fred that we saw weeks 1 through 5 or 6. Now we're getting, a different kind of Fred Warner where the play has definitely took a downward trend. If that can swoop back up on the chart and he can be who he's been all his entire career and taking away the middle of the football field, that's a massive plus for San Francisco and going to be a massive help to stopping a Packers offense that wants to target over the middle, that wants to give Tucker Kraft the football. You take away Kraft, you're forcing them to beat you on the boundaries, right? Winning this football game really comes down to Fred Warner. Honestly, like we talk about Bosa and trenches and whatnot and all that stuff, but this game to me is a Fred Warner do or die. This is if Fred's playing great football, you're going to have a chance. If Fred's playing how he's played the last few weeks, you can call this one over unless your offense comes alive, right? So this is a massive Fred Warner game. Really, this is their season, honestly. Like, I know there's still a chance if they lose and the Cardinals also lose and the Rams lose against Philadelphia this week, like, it's not over technically, but you got to play like your season's over with. I'm banking on Fred Warner playing like that on Sunday against Green Bay. So there's still a chance. In regards to Nick Bosa, though, the Niners have not had a consistent pass rush all year. Now, with Bosa out there, Floyd has played much better in recent weeks. They had a couple sacks against Geno last week, but without Bosa out there, you're then banking on players like Floyd and Gross-Matos starting and Sam Aquanu, who's had a really good season and surprised us a lot, but then it's Robert Beal Jr. And not to say that's not going to work, but it's an uphill climb to make that actually impactful for you. And if you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, you're asking the opposing or you're asking your defense to cover even longer. And San Francisco's defense, who it's been pretty good in regards to secondary play this year, you just can't give Jordan Love, a lot of time to throw. With the weapons they have, like, he'll just crush you. He'll beat you. Like, that's where they make their bread and butter. Oh, plays long, broken play. Okay, now I have Jaden Reed wide open behind the linebackers, or I have, Wicks and Dobbs streaking downfield because my guys can't cover for 10 seconds. So Bosa, again, that's why I think on third and longs, on third downs, Bosa should play. But if you can't go at all, your defense is really going to be linebackers and your secondary carrying the load. Like, it really is. So there is a lot of fear there in regards to what San Francisco's defense can and can't do this Sunday. This is a massive, like, what do you got? Show me what you got. I do think San Francisco's defense will pick off the football. I think that the defense will do their job like they have all year for the most part. And this game's not going to be a blowout. It's not going to be ugly unless, Brock doesn't play. But this is a game where Purdy does play. I'm expecting the same Niner game I've seen all year. Oh, it's 20-23 going into the fourth quarter. Oh, it's 17-14 going into the fourth quarter. Can San Francisco hold on? Can San Francisco take the lead late? This feels like another one of those games where if Purdy plays, Niners have a chance. If Warner plays great, if the Niners defense has done what they've done all year long, they're going to put their offense in the position to score some points. And it's up to the Niners offense to pick up the pieces. Keys asks here, rather off topic, Keys, but I'll answer your question for you. He asks, just wondering, is Jon Gruden still able to be employed by the NFL after that's the only coach I would consider replacing Kyle for? Jon Gruden replacing Kyle Shanahan? Do we have to pause and talk about the fire Kyle Shanahan conversation happening on Twitter and on X right now? Okay, so let's talk about this. It'll be quick. I think Gruden can still be employed. I'm not entirely sure about that, so I'm not the person to ask. I think he can. I don't think he's banned for life in regards to what happened through the emails and stuff. But in regards to the overarching part of your point of, okay, let's replace Kyle Shanahan, right? Look, you've had a bad year so far. You're 5-5. You've not been great. You are coming off your second appearance in the Super Bowl, mind you, and it's not been great. But okay, let's just lay this out there. If you fire Kyle Shanahan, okay, what happens? He gets hired instantly elsewhere. Okay, to some of you, that doesn't matter at all. That's fine. What do you have if he leaves? To the people saying, well, just hire Ben Johnson. Maybe that's a chance. I mean, maybe that's what you do. If Ben Johnson says yes, he may not. Ben Johnson reportedly has been eyeing the Bears job for years and didn't take it because of what they were doing out there this past offseason. So If you fire Kyle, you are likely not going to get Ben Johnson. Maybe it's Bill Belichick. I don't know. Maybe it's, there's places you can swing, but it's not just, okay, Kyle's gone. Now we still have Brock and Deebo and Aiyuk. And you have all these players here, but you are then going to keep John Lynch? Okay, that's interesting. Guys that are kind of tied to the hip came in together. You're going to keep John around with a new head coach? Interesting. That usually doesn't work. But okay, say you're bringing somebody else. Then you're going to have to gut the organization that he's helped build the fabric of since 2017. It's a new scheme, a new offense. You're not bringing in someone that can do the exact same thing Kyle has done since 2017. It's a new scheme. There's going to be roster changes left and right. You're talking about, maybe it's a new head coach. It's like, you know what? I don't really want Brock Purdy. I have a top 10 pick because you played somebody this year. I want a quarterback this year. Well, the quarterbacks in the draft this year suck. Like, they're not as good as they were last year, not as good as they were 2 years ago. And I'll be darned to say they're even as good as they were in 2021. Like, it's a lot of question marks, maybe outside of Shitter Sanders, but even then, there's some question marks, right? So you do that. You also change the culture. You have guys like Kittle and Deebo and Brock and Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Juszczyk and Trent Williams that have all either come to San Francisco or re-signed in San Francisco because of Kyle Shanahan. Like, okay, and then you're telling Jed York, or Jed York's telling you, okay, we're going to fire Kyle. This is the most success they've ever had since 1995. I get it. Harbaugh, cool. Harbaugh went to 1 and lost. Shanahan's been to 2 and lost. Now, I get the lost part is the issue here, but you're uprooting success, culture, and a roster that is still one of the best in football. Why? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm frustrated too. You have every right to be upset and frustrated. But Kyle has not lost the culture. He hasn't lost the team. He hasn't lost the locker room. Teams would actively fire their head coaches to have a chance to hire Kyle Shanahan. That's how wanted he would be. Now, maybe you don't care. Maybe I don't care. They're losing. They're 5-5. 2 losses in the Super Bowl. Yeah, it sucks, man. It really sucks. And everybody points to Philadelphia on both spectrums, right? Well, do you really want to fire Andy Reid? Look at him now in Kansas City. Vice versa. People were like, well, Andy Reid was great when they fired him and they won a Super Bowl later. Yeah, 6 years later, in 2 different head coaches and multiple different quarterbacks. And it still took a once-in-a-lifetime run by a quarterback on his second stint with Philadelphia and Nick Foles. I get it. You're frustrated. And this wasn't targeted towards you, Keys, mind you, just kind of in general conversation. I get it. It's a frustrating thing to be involved in, right? We want to win. The expectations, how much money they're spending. It's the window. Maximize the window, right? That's great. I'm all for that. Let's do that. You maximize your window by not firing Kyle Shanahan. That's just a given. Like, the Bears fans are already talking about Kyle Shanahan. You don't think 85% of the NFL would not be jumping? Like, teams, like, you don't think the Falcons would fire Raheem Morris tomorrow if it meant they're going to get Kyle Shanahan back? Of course they would. Of course they would, right? Teams would let go of their head coaches they hired last year to bring in Kyle Shanahan. I guarantee you that. But you like, it took Philadelphia 6 years, and Chip Kelly and Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz having an MVP year, then a torn ACL. Then Nick Foles comes in and saves the season. Like, you're asking, like, what you're really pitching is, hey, let's rebuild the whole franchise. Let's rebuild the roster. Which, okay, if you're for that, fine. That's cool with me. If that's what you want to do, fine. Awesome. If you're for that, great. I guarantee you who's not for it, Jed York. I guarantee what you don't want to do, you want to sit through Chip Kelly coaching this team in a rebuild That's what happened in Philadelphia post Andy Reid, right? That was the dream team they built in Philadelphia with Nnamdi Asomugha, Vince Young, and Michael Vick, and Deshaun Jackson, and they sucked. They tore that puppy down so fast. DeMarco Murray was the running back. They were terrible out there. Like, really, it took them, okay, let's fire Andy Reid. Now let's bring in Chip Kelly. And they were terrible for years. They were the reason why they were so good post Chip Kelly is because they had the second overall pick. They were that bad. Is that what you want? That's just kind of what is out there, right? Where it's like, oh, they fire Kyle. He's been bad year. Okay, fine, fire Kyle. You're going to be worse off. You're worse off. Like you're going to be in a worse place post Kyle Shanahan than you are with Kyle Shanahan. Key says here, I would want draft compensation for Kyle. Should get in that and hire Gruden as the GM, or hire Gruden as a GM. Shouldn't be too hard to find. I think Lynch is overrated at best. Sure. But even if you trade Kyle for 2 first-round picks, mind you, right? Okay, fine. Trade Kyle for 2 first-round pick, a first-round pick to Carolina or the Saints or someone like that, right? So you traded one of the best head coaches in football, which is already hard to find, right? Teams like the Jaguars, funny enough, Doug Peterson, the Saints, the Panthers, the Browns, the Bears really right now, the Bengals might fire their head coach. Like you're asking, what you're saying is that a top 5 head coach, top 10 head coach isn't good enough for us. Because he's been more successful than everybody else in the league, not named Reed and McVay, for the last 10 years. Like, what are we doing? Like, do we not forget what it was like pre-Shanahan with Tom Sula and Kelly? Now, that doesn't mean you can't get better elsewhere. It just means that you're going to cut bait with someone that's brought you the most success since 1995. Why would you do that? Teams are like fan bases and organizations and owners are begging for San Francisco to be that stupid to fire Kyle Shanahan. Like, really. Papa J says here, doesn't it seem like the rest of the league is caught up to Kyle Shanahan, but Kyle hasn't adjusted? Just my opinion, it seems to be the problem. I don't think you're necessarily wrong there in regards to, the team kind of catching on to things. That's what happens when the league adapts your scheme 30 different times over with. Now, within that, you make adjustments, right? But let's look back, 10 months ago, 8 to 12 months ago. This team is boat racing everybody. Okay, they go into an offseason in which Brandon Aiyuk's holding out and CMC gets injured and Pearsall gets shot and it's Jennings and Deebo and Purdy's in there, sure, but then Trent's holding out the entire offseason. Now he's 36 years old. Greenlaw's not out there. Hufunga's hurt. Like, there are a lot of distractions, right? A lot of issues. And I do think that while, yes, I agree with this, Rob says Kyle could use an extra set of eyes, I don't think it's an OC. What I really think is that Kyle, a lot of it's roster construction. A lot of it really is. And that the perfect segue into what I want to talk about with the offense today. So thank you, Keys and Papa J and Rob. Thank you so much. It's perfect. Because let's skip on Purdy and Mason and CMC for a second. Let's talk about the receiver room and the offensive line. The offensive line this year has been atrocious, minus Williams and Dominic Pooney. And Dominic Pooney is playing phenomenal football. And I can argue that the backup tight ends this year have been terrible. There's missed assignments. There's missed, not picking up blitzes correctly and stunts correctly. Go back and watch that Seahawks game. The reason they lost was because of the offensive line. Jake Brendel has been absolutely terrible this year. He is ranked, I believe, like the 42nd, 46th offensive center in football. He's graded worse than backup centers. That's how bad he's been this year. I don't understand the infatuation with him. McKivitz has been a good run blocker, but a terrible pass blocker this year. And Aaron Banks in a contract year has been subpar at best, right? It's a lot of the offensive line issues. It's banking on Brendel being okay when he didn't become a starter until he was like 32 years old. Okay, I mean, guys bloom late, but the odds they sustain that is pretty low. And you didn't get a center at all in the last 2 drafts. Why? You banking on Nick Zakelj being a dude? Why? Like, okay, you have John Feliciano, which Brendel was okay last year, but you have John Feliciano and begging Shanahan to start John Feliciano. He's a better player overall, a better run blocker, and we've all talked all year about, hey, this team can't run the football in the red zone. Well, they really can't run the ball at all when you have Jake Brendel playing center. Like, they've been terrible. Terrible. They're whiffing blocks, missing assignments, not picking up stunts, and failures to pick up blitzes. You're having them pull Banks and Saubert on runs to the right and then running into each other, not even blocking dude against Kansas City. Like, really, this comes down to the offensive line being terrible and not Shanahan needing the extra eyes as an OC. He's a heck of a play caller. It's who he invests his money and his draft picks into that's the problem. We've talked about first-round pick whiffs, Trey Lance, Solomon Thomas, Reuben Thomas, McGlinchey, and whatnot, or Reuben Foster. A lot of whiffs early, and it's hurt this team. Third round has been a cluster, you know what, because it's Trey Sermon, Ty Davis Price, Danny Gray, Cam Latu, and you're like, how many times can you continue to miss on these pivotal, top-tier picks and win? And it's catching up to them now. They drafted 2 guys to be backup tight ends. One's a practice squad player, and Cam Latu is somewhere picking his nose on a couch like Dwight Goodman in Dodgeball being like, suck it, LaFleur. Like, that's what he's doing. Eating a bucket of fried chicken somewhere, like Ben Stiller in Dodgeball. Like, that's massive whiffs they've made where you're banking on Eric Saubert, who is a career tight end 3, to be your tight end 2 and 1 when Kittle misses time. That's a GM issue. That's a scouting issue. That is a where we invest our time and money issue in roster construction, not an OC issue, not a play calling problem. Go to the receivers for a second here. You have a really good room. You have Jauan, you have Deebo, you have Pearsall, Cowling, you have Brandon Aiyuk. Yet you're seeing in real time the detriment in the absence of Brandon Aiyuk. San Francisco's offense, and mainly the quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, Jimmy G, when those guys have had success, it's timing. It's hitting guys in the flat, hitting guys on slants and crossers with that timing. Because Shanahan's so good at being a play caller, he can make sure and guarantee, hey, as long as we have that one guy that can beat man coverage, that one guy that can fit in that little bubble in the zone, we're going to get points. We're going to get first downs. San Francisco does not have that player this year because Ayuk's been out. And when he was playing, it wasn't who he was last year because of the holdout, right? You hope Pearsall can be that. But look at against Seattle last week. When you had Jennings out there, you had Deebo, you had Pearsall, Brock Purdy had a 25% tight window throw rate. That would be the highest of any quarterback all year long. And I'm sorry, I know Seattle won. Their defense ain't that good. Their defense is not, hey, let's force a quarterback into a 25% tight window throw rate. And they ain't that good, I'm sorry. Like, those are things that Shanahan and Brock can't fix. They can't fix that Deebo and Jennings and Pearsall all have below 2.7 yards of separation. When the average is 2.9, those guys don't even have 2.7. And for Pearsall, he's a rookie. He's played 4 games. I can forgive him. But you have Jennings, who, let's be honest here, we know these guys' skill sets and their strong suits, okay? Jennings is not the guy you ask to separate. He's the guy you ask to make contested catches, to be clutch, third and Jauan. That's his role. Now, he can be a lot better than that, and he has been so far this year. But on the catches he's made, he ain't even open. Like, he's fighting dudes left and right. He's elbowing guys. He's jumping up over dudes and mossing them. He's not even open. It's just like, hey, Jauan has great hands. He's a big body dude. Let's give him a chance. And Deebo can barely even get open against a linebacker. Like, if you put Devondre Campbell and Deebo Samuel 1v1, I don't know who'd win that rep at this point. That's how sad it's been. And so those are things that I get the frustrations with Shanahan as a head coach and this year, and it's been tough and it sucks. I totally get it. I am all with you guys in saying, let's change something. Shanahan, at some point, has to be accountable for the mistakes this team has made. But those mistakes, to me, aren't always play calling. Those, to me, are the infrastructure of the roster construction itself. It's extending Jake Brendel. It's trusting Colton McKivitz to be the starting right tackle when you had a chance to draft one the last 2 years and not doing it at all. Didn't even draft a backup right tackle. Why? What are we doing? Like, what does that make sense? It's looking at players like Deebo saying, you know what? If we have Brandon Aiyuk involved, now, had Aiyuk been healthy and not held out, I think we're having a different conversation. I think had Pearsall had the entirety of the offseason program, we're having a different conversation. But because those things happen, Aiyuk may never be back at all. Who knows? Pearsall gets shot in the chest. He can't practice for months and months and months. Now he's trying to play catch up, but the season's kind of almost over for them, right? It's unfair for those two players. And it really comes down to Kyle banking on one or two players being the difference in the offense. Now, having CMC for the first 2 months of the year, like, that hurts. Any team would hate that. Take away Saquon and Derrick Henry from the Ravens and the Eagles, they're not going to be as good, and those teams are going to hurt, and they're going to struggle. But it's the fact is, you have people in place that this is the team you wanted to put together. And when one piece falls apart, you can't figure things out. To me, it's the over-reliance on one or two players that has cost this team. It's okay, if we're not going to have guys that can separate outside of Aiyuk and eventually Ricky Pearsall, you have to protect the quarterback. Look at what Kansas City did. Kansas City did it the right way. And of course they have. They've trying to get a three-peat. What'd they do? They let Tyreek Hill go. They got 3 new offensive linemen in there, protected Mahomes. You can't sack him, and said, you know what? Even if they get to the quarterback, which is a rarity, he's mobile enough, he'll make a play. The Chiefs really don't have those players that can separate. It's Mecole Hardman and Juju Smith-Schuster, and they were going to have Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice, but now it's DeAndre Hopkins, which, I'm sorry, even Hopkins, for as good as he is, still, he's not a great separator right now. He's past his prime, but he's still good enough. Like, KC said, you know what? We're going to build from the trenches out. Because when we have an offense like San Francisco does here, with guys that can't separate, well, you need to be able to keep your quarterback up and run the football. That's exactly what KC's doing. It's Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, Isaiah Pacheco. Mahomes is not carrying that team. You know who is? The offensive line, running game, and that defense. And San Francisco used to be that way. They used to be that way. And then Kyle said, you know what? I can get fancy. I can get CMC and Pearsall and Deebo and Jennings and Cowing and Grendo and Mason. Whoo, all these weapons. And got away from what got him to being successful. Infrastructure, trenches, offensive line, defensive line, getting the quarterback and making him stay upright the majority of the time, on-time throws, quick release stuff. Now, thankfully, Brock can do all those things you're asking of him to do. The issue is he ain't got time to throw, and when he has time to throw, nobody can separate. Like, it's a lot of roster construction problems. San Francisco, plainly and bluntly, just doesn't have the team this year they had last year. Guys are playing down. Guys are struggling more. They just don't have the dudes they had in previous years, and the dudes they have now aren't doing what they were doing last year. Like, this is I know they're 5-5 and they're still alive, which that rhymes and it wasn't supposed to, and we're all kind of hoping, hey, we can put this back together and we can get, all we got to do is get in. San Francisco, really, like, sometimes you need years like this where you get smacked in the face, where you get pummeled and you're like, they got to change something. Now, thankfully, San Francisco can do that while also still being successful. San Francisco, despite feeling like forever or a long shot, can feasibly still make the playoffs, and if they get hot, can still beat a handful of teams. But it's going to take guys that are not that good playing over their skis, which they have been doing the last couple of years. Now those guys are falling back to who they once were pre 2022 and 2023. It's a personnel problem. I don't think it's a Kyle Shanahan play problem. There's small qualms here or there, but ultimately it's like you got Jake Brendel playing center, who was like the 48th ranked center in football. There's only 32 starting centers in football. Like, how can you do anything? Like, the Niners' run blocking was atrocious against Seattle. That's why they lost. Now, with that said, thankfully, you have people that are in the building that can actually help you. I think Kyle, one of his issues is that he doesn't rely on people that when CMC's out and you have Jordan Mason, who was the third leading rusher in football through week 8, and he's seen 3 rushing attempts the last 2 weeks. I get it. He had the shoulder injury. I get it. Maybe he's banged up still, but he seems like a full go. You would think that maybe you want to put that guy in here or there. This is a game where if it's snowing in Green Bay, if it's not a Jordan Mason game, what else is? This is a Jordan Mason game. If it snows, written all over him. All over him. Papa J says here, I love you, Sterling. I love you too, Papa J. I truly think that it's Kyle's own play calling that's gotten him in trouble. There's been times for sure. Like the stupid Deebo jet sweep crap doesn't work. Stop it. It doesn't work. Everyone knows it's coming. They can see it from a mile away. I know it's coming. You know it's coming. Stop coming. Don't cut that, please. But like, just stop using it. It's bad. Keys says here, do you believe if the Niners didn't get unbelievably lucky with drafting Purdy, Lynch and Kyle's jobs would be gone? I mean, at that point, they'd probably have signed Kirk Cousins, so probably not. But you probably would have saw more Trey Lance last year. Maybe Jimmy G comes back for another year. But I do get what you're saying, and I do agree that the Niners have, for all their misses, have been insanely lucky to get bailed out almost every single time. Every single time. Where they draft Trey Lance, 3 first-round draft picks and a third-round draft pick, and you're like, well, oh, cool, we got the guy, and then he sucks. And it's one of the worst trades in NFL history. And you have Purdy, who steals the show and looks awesome. Probably going to get $65 million in the offseason, which, cool, great. They got bailed out. They got bailed out for sure. You look at, I'm trying to think, like, they signed Jerick McKinnon. And okay, like, he was supposed to be the CMC of that generation of Niners offense in 2018, I believe it was. Then he tears his ACL twice. And oh crap. And then you get bailed out by Mostert and Breida and others, and Jeff Wilson Jr. Those guys bail you out. Okay, cool. Like, you go trade and you sign D Ford and you trade DeForest Buckner and Kinlaw sucks. Okay, but then thank God for DJ Jones, right? Like, you have people like that come along and like, wow, you have Arden Key and Ebukam and Amenahue, and they make those trades and they make the signings, but it's like you get bailed out because for every bad move you've made, you somehow find a way to remedy it here or there. So I don't think it would be gone. There would have been a massive pivot, though, to we don't have a rookie quarterback contract that is the lowest in the entire league. It's okay, now you're paying Kirk Cousins for 3 years off a torn Achilles, or you're trading for a quarterback elsewhere. I think that's what it would have been. Or it's Trey Lance plays all last year, you suck again, and you draft a quarterback this year. I mean, that's realistic, right? You suck. Oh, Trey's bad. We're top 5 pick. We're Drake May. We're Jaden Daniels. We're Caleb Williams, right? So, you can go into that for sure, but this is this year. Like, the Niners are 5-5. They're not that great. You got Christian McCaffrey, who, one of the greatest trades in the entire franchise history. He's been awesome. I do want to dive into a little bit more of the Packers game, though, because a little bit of a tangent there. Let's bring it back. Deebo Samuel got called out today. How about that? I thought it was great. I thought it made sense. Now, was it a little too far from Terrell Owens on my employer, 95.7 The Game, Bonte Hill and Joe Shasky, the morning roast, that is. But Terrell Owens said this about Deebo Samuel. Deebo is not really playing up to Deebo standards. I agree. Deebo seems like he's more focused on his pregame attire than he is the actual game. If we can shift that focus, maybe that can energize and create some more production from an offensive standpoint. ... I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, though. Deebo then responds and says, T.O., cut it out, fam. I love it. Now, it's funny coming from Terrell Owens about people who had a workout filmed in his driveway when he wanted to leave Philadelphia and essentially forced his way out of San Francisco and didn't want to go to the Ravens. So it's funny to say that, but I think it's great. I think Deebo needs that. I really think that, you have the Netflix documentary, wide receiver, Super Bowl 2 years, you lose. Sometimes you want to do anything but your job. Like, I've worked at plenty of places, and you're like, I don't really want to be here right now. And not to say Deebo doesn't love football. Obviously, Deebo loves football and all that stuff. He wants to play football. But sometimes you're just like, okay, like, you go through the motions. And Deebo on his podcast on Bleacher Report talked about this being one of the hardest years for him as a player and the team, because they're right there to being, an 8-7 win team, but they can't close games. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm sorry, Deebo, but look at your stats. And part of that's the reason. Deebo Samuel's averaging 2.9 yards on 27 carries this year. That makes him one of 4 players with at least 25 attempts to average less than 3 yards a carry in 2024. Keep in mind, Deebo averaged 6.3 yards an attempt from 2019, his rookie season, to 2023, that being last year. That was the highest average amongst NFL players with 150-plus rushes over that span. Deebo went from literally the best rusher in the entire league for 4 years, 5 years, whatever it's been, now to one of the worst in the entire league. Yet, best shape of his entire life in training camp, and it's like, did the slow start hurt you? Like, I get there's been injuries here or there, but it's like, are you distracted? Like, I love maybe not the avenue that T.O. took, but I love him being called out. If you're going to call out Jake Moody, then you have a bad game the next week, you got to get called out too. We heard about the locker room being sad and quiet, like, how did we lose to Seattle? It's stats like that in regards to how you lose to the Seahawks. So the Niners need more from Deebo Samuel. The Niners need to get all-pro Deebo Samuel back on the end arounds, on the jet sweeps. Like, if Shanahan's not going to stop using them, then you got to have Deebo be more effective. Now, with that, all comes back to the offensive line, and they got to do their job and open the lanes up for Deebo. That's a major problem. It all starts up front for San Francisco. Red zone, been an issue. Getting in the end zone, been an issue. All year, been an issue. They don't block up front anymore. They're not that good. That said, one massive help is getting George Kittle back. You get Kittle back this week, said he's going to play. While Kittle certainly helps in the passing game for sure, albeit the Packers have been really good against tight ends this year. They're averaging less than 4 catches and 40 yards allowed against tight ends since week 6. So been a pretty good stretch of good coverage against tight ends, albeit not the best, I guess you can say, group of tight ends they've played, but still a pretty good job. Xavier McKinney's been incredible for Green Bay. So many interceptions this year. He's been just an insane pickup. The Giants really botched their roster. You sign Daniel Jones, you let McKinney and Barkley leave, and you're like, what? You see what those guys are doing now in Philadelphia and Green Bay? But I digress. The major factor in getting Kittle back is Eric Saubert doesn't have to be out there on the field. Your running game should be better against the Packers, who have a pretty good defense. That, like, you want to win the football game, you got to get Kittle out there. Like, the Packers defense, is better than Seattle's for sure, but they're beatable. Like, they've lost some games this year. The Bears had them beat outside of the blocked field goal. Like, the Packers have played kind of this roller coaster season where they're barely winning football games, whereas San Francisco is similarly not winning football games that they should be winning. So getting Kittle back is going to help immensely in running the football for this team and hopefully helping an offensive line pick up the pieces that were a terrible outing against the Seahawks last week. You also got to have more from Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall, first-round pick. I get you got shot in the chest. Can't say it doesn't matter anymore, but here we are. This is your fourth NFL game, I believe. Chiefs, your fifth NFL career game coming up this Sunday. Got to have more. Is it unfair to ask more from him? Maybe, but you are this team's by depth chart number 3 receiver. Now, sometimes he's open and Brock doesn't see him. Brock against the Seahawks just did not see the field very well. One of his worst games of the entire year. I get he had 2 touchdowns, and I get they had to lead late, but he's not been great since the Dallas game. Really, since the Chiefs game. He's not been Brock Purdy. He's not been who we saw the first month and a half of the year. He's been kind of a guy you question of, should we pay him $60 million a year in this offseason? But got to have more. And a lot of that starts with getting guys to separate. I already said, Pearsall, 2.2 yards of separation. It's not going to cut it. That is 7.7 yards. Excuse me. That is 0.77 yards below the average. It's not going to cut it. You got to have guys being more consistent in their routes and in and out of their cuts. And that goes on Pearsall. But also Brock. Rick Diaz says here, how you doing, my friend? It's 11:44 in Chicago. Well, I thank you so much, Rick, for joining the show. Really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Is it cold in Chicago? Got to be cold in Chicago. How bummed were you that the Bears didn't beat the Packers last week? Man. I guarantee out there in Chi-Town, they're begging San Francisco to beat Green Bay this Sunday. Papa J says here, T.O.'s right. And Keys says here that just goes to show you how important QB is. Brock can hide all the mistakes by management. You're right. Great quarterbacks can hide a lot of mistakes teams make. Ask Tom Brady. Patriots couldn't find him a receiver for like a decade. It was Edelman, and that was it. It was Edelman and Gronk, and that was it. Like, they had nobody else. It was Enkil Harry and a bunch of other guys. You're like, who? So yeah, great quarterbacks can hide a lot of the mismanagement of the front office. Brock can do that. Brock's done that a lot this year, but got to bounce back after a pretty bad game against the Seahawks. If he plays, he is going to be the quarterback facing a really good defense. They are a team that, although starts out slow, the Packers rank 25th in points allowed in the first half, 13.1. Okay? You hear that? Okay, get off to a hot start, keep a lead late. Tough job, but maybe you can pull one off in Green Bay. But this is where it gets really tricky. Overall, Green Bay ranks 10th in points allowed per game at 21.3. And here's the kicker, and it's getting me a little scared. They are the best defense in points allowed in the fourth quarter. Simply putting it, you don't score against the Packers in the fourth quarter. 3.2 points allowed in the fourth quarter. Just over a field goal. If you ain't got a lead early, you likely ain't getting the lead late against the Green Bay Packers, whereas San Francisco ranks 27th in points allowed in the fourth quarter at 8.8. Got to get a lead early. Got to sustain that lead and hold on for dear life to that life jacket. You're going to be afloat in Lambeau in the snow. It's going to be a tough task, really tough task. Again, Brock wasn't great against Seattle. I do think we see an uptick in production. I know we've talked a lot about, well, Trent Williams doesn't play, which I think he will. Bosa doesn't play. I don't know if he will. And if Purdy doesn't play, although I think Purdy will actually play this Sunday, if Purdy plays, I think we are going to see an uptick in production. I don't think Brock is in the business of having a month and a half of bad play. That ain't him. The Packers do rank third in takeaways this year, but looking at the offense this year for San Francisco, Brock had 29 passes in the first 8 games of 20-plus yards downfield, 0 the last 2. That, to me, will change this Sunday, and the reason why that will change is because San Francisco will hopefully, fingers crossed, get back to running the football. Christian McCaffrey, 3.7 yards since he's returned. This year, the Green Bay Packers have allowed 119 yards per game. That ranks 14th in football. And the Green Bay Packers are allowing 7.6 rushing first downs per game. The door is open for sustainable drives against the Green Bay Packers. You want to get back to playing Kyle Shanahan brand of football, pound the rock, chew the clock, and get your out of Green Bay with the win. There's doors open. You just got to walk in. Like Bill Belichick says, just do your job. Just do your job. You win games. And what would really help in San Francisco doing their job would, I don't know, be playing Jordan Mason a little bit more. I already talked about him being the NFL's third leading rusher in weeks 1 through 8. Well, 3 carries since in the last 2 weeks. That's got to change. San Francisco really has an opportunity to, I don't say shock the world, but the Packers want this one. They want to win this one. The Niners do have avenues of victory. Love will give it up. The Packers defense is not great when he gives it up on the next drive. If San Francisco can capitalize on those mistakes, and really Love is unafraid to give the ball up on his side of the football field, the Niners are going to have opportunities all over this game to win. And I think that they can run the football against a average at best Packers run defense that doesn't have a great pass rush. I do think San Francisco can win. Unfortunately, I don't have them winning. I wish I could say that. I wish I could dive in head first and say, we're back, I believe. I'm just at a point in time where I need them to prove to me they can do this. That's where I stand. At an hour and 18 minutes into the podcast, I simply just need San Francisco to prove to me they can win this football game. Prove to me that a loss against the Seahawks and the Rams and the Cardinals, that's behind them, that they're turning the corner. Now, Brock doesn't play. Well, doesn't matter what happens. They're going to lose this football game. But I do think that San Francisco has a chance. And that's why, despite Owen saying pack on top, although I think he's right, I do have the Packers winning 27-23. That said, 4 points is not a big swing. I do think San Francisco will have their chances to win this game. I just need them to prove to me they can capitalize on Jordan Love's mistakes and get back to running the rock. If the offensive line bounces back, the Niners will be in this game till the very end. And, well, they've been there a lot this year, but I think they can hold on to wins against the Green Bay Packers if the offensive line can bounce back and if they can run the football successfully. That is the key to victory. Running the football successfully. Trenches, trenches, trenches. If your friend asks, hey, how does San Francisco win? Say, hey, well, my guy Sterling said trenches. One word. How San Francisco wins? That's 2 words, trenches. That's how they win this game. But I do have the Packers winning this one 27-23. Fingers crossed, I get proven wrong. I would love to be wrong here. I want San Francisco to be 6-5. Funny enough, we're all Seahawks and Eagles fans this week. Philadelphia is playing the Rams. Go fly, Eagles, fly, I guess, for 1 week's time. God, I hate saying that. And Seattle's playing the Cardinals. Oddly enough, go 12th man. That really hurt coming out of my mouth, but I digress. Here we are, folks. We're rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Seattle Seahawks to keep our playoff hopes alive. Who would have thought we'd be here? If I was Paul Rudd, I'd crack open a drink. You hear the crack of the can, and I'd say, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Well, either way, here we are, and I'm asking you kindly to drop your predictions down below. How do you see this game playing out? You think San Francisco wins? You think Green Bay wins? If you could kindly follow me on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. Papa J says here, 30-17 Green Bay sad face. Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I can see that happening at a pretty easy rate if San Francisco doesn't have Brock Purdy. Honestly, they ain't got Brock Purdy. We could be talking about 30-10, 30-6. We could be talking about 30 to Jake Moody. I don't know. It could be a scary game for San Francisco, but follow us on social media. Give us that 5-star review. Like, share, subscribe to the video. If you want to see San Francisco play, if you like Rick Diaz and you're in Chicago at midnight there, and you're saying, you know what, I want to go watch San Francisco play this week in Wisconsin and Green Bay, I'll go to SeatGeek.com and I'll find my tickets out there at Lambeau, and I'll put in promo code 49ErsAccess, and I'll save $20 off my first purchase. Hell, that'll save for my parking. That'll save for a beer maybe. I got to stay warm somehow. Maybe it's some hot cocoa. It's almost Thanksgiving. Whatever you're eating out there in Chicago, maybe it's a hot dog. $20 off your tickets is kind of a nice deal when you're getting a bargain in regards to your seats. If you want to see concerts, MLB is coming up soon, NBA's in full swing. You want to watch anything live, SeatGeek.com, promo code 49ErsAccess, 49 ERSACCESS. Save yourself $20 off. If you kindly could go to SportsSpyder.com or click that link down below, your one-stop shop for all your team's favorite news, podcast, YouTube videos, and articles, all in one place. MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, WNBA, doesn't matter. Whatever your favorite team is, SportsSpyder.com is your place to be. Want to thank you to Papa J, Owen, Rick Diaz, Keys, Lori Matthews, Rob Iman, anybody else, RC Sports, who is out there in Green Bay, Romelo Ball, Jim Everett the Great, and many, many more in the YouTube chat. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you like, share, subscribe, leave that review. Lori Matthews says, good night, fellas. She's got us winning. Lori, I pray to God you're right, because I'm tired of losing in 2024. Let's see if San Francisco can climb back up the NFC West rankings. Maybe if they win, they're tied for first all over again. That's how close this sucker is. Fingers crossed it happens, and hope they can pull this one out at Lambeau Field. But my name is Sterling Bennett. Hope you enjoyed Thursday Night Football. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you give us that 5-star review and leave a like on the video. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. A lot of football ahead of us, a lot of pivotal games ahead of us, and we're almost at Thanksgiving. So can I say happy holidays yet? Can I say happy Thanksgiving? If I can't, I'll say it anyways. I already have the Christmas tree up. I got the lights up. The house is already ready to go for Christmas time, so I'll do whatever I want to on my own show. I digress. Have a great rest of your night. And as always, stay faithful.